In this video, I'm going to be going through what attribution analytics is all about, and we are going to be building the attribution model in BigQuery. Attribution is a vital process in e-commerce operations. It helps e-commerce businesses determine which of their channels gives them the best results. Before we get started, make sure you've downloaded the dataset, which the link is in the description below. And if you want to have access to these notes, the link is also in the description below. Also, make sure your BigQuery environment is set up so that we'll be able to create these models inside BigQuery. Now, if you're familiar with any other database like Snowflake or Postgres, you can also use that. But for this video, I'll be demonstrating using BigQuery. So the textbook definition of attribution analysis is the process of assigning credits to market interaction that drove a sale or a conversion. It helps e-commerce businesses in creating accurate performance analysis and discover which of their channels are their top revenue drivers. Now, various marketing actors involved in attribution could be advertisements, campaigns, their social media pages, emails, and landing pages. The simplest way of explaining attribution is simply say an e-commerce business spent $2,000 on ads right here, and at the end of the month they got in $10,000 of revenue. And for their ads was split across Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Now, what they want to discover is which of these channels brought in this money and how much did each of these channels bring in. They want to discover which of them brought in the most amount of revenue so that they can focus on those channels or optimize their campaigns to target their audience better. So after attribution, we now discover that Facebook brought a total of $1,500 and TikTok brought in $1,800. Then YouTube brought in $3,700 and LinkedIn brought in $3,000. So this simply tells the business that, okay, YouTube and LinkedIn are our highest performing channels. So most likely either they drop Facebook and TikTok or they decide to optimize campaigns for Facebook and TikTok to reach their audience better, to make more revenue. And they can also decide to allocate more budgets to YouTube and LinkedIn, right, out of this their $2,000 ad spend. That's really the simplest example of what attribution is all about. Now, why attribution is important? Attribution helps businesses from budget allocation to measuring true marketing ROI, which is their return on marketing spend. They help to identify high performing channels and campaigns, allocate marketing budgets more effectively, optimize customer acquisition efforts by creating better ads and creatives, understanding true cost of acquiring a customer, and measure their marketing ROI more accurately. So why does attribution even exist? Yes, we've already stated the most basic function of attribution, which is to assign various channels their credits which they brought the business. But the process is much more complicated than that. You see, the journey of a customer from the first day of interaction to conversion is really a straightforward journey. The customer might see a Facebook ad on Monday, and then a week later he searches for that particular product on Google. Then he receives an email 2 weeks later regarding that product or that campaign, and then makes a purchase the next day. So the question becomes, which marketing touchpoint deserves credit for the conversion? This is the problem attribution aims to solve. In this example, a touch point is simply the place, or rather the channel that the customer interacted with, right? He could have seen a Facebook ad and not clicked on it. That doesn't register as a touch point, but the moment he clicks on that ad and goes into the products page, it's now registered as a touch point. So here's a visual demonstration, right? So this customer, which is us, he sees an ad on Monday, right? He's scrolling through Facebook and he sees an ad. I believe all of us have come across Temu ads at one point in time. And probably the first 10 times that we sought him out, we didn't sign up or we didn't try to attempt to buy anything. So he sees this ad on Monday and then he ignores it. Then maybe later on down the line, he has seen it over and over again and he searched for the product and then he saw it again on Temu and he was like, okay, he's interested, but left the product and maybe he even signed up, right? Signed up for the e-commerce store or the website, and then decided to leave the product and not buy anything. But along the line, 2 weeks later, he now received an email reminding him of a campaign or of a product that he was interested in. And then for some reason, the next day he finally got his product. So Attribution now decides which of these campaigns, which of these touch points do we give credit to? Do we give it to the first ad he saw on Monday and he checked it out? Or do we give it to Google where he searched and checked it out? Or do we give it to this email that finally led him to make a purchase the next day? And on paper, attribution sounds pretty simple, but when modeling it as an engineer, you could end up making little errors or mistakes that could give you a completely false result. So it's also important to know the different and various techniques or methods using attribution. So here are the types of attribution. There are two major types: single touch models and multi-touch models. There are definitely others beyond this, but these are the two primary types that most e-commerce businesses use. So single touch models involves using only one touch points as their credits, right? They give credits to only a single touch point and not more than one. So it could be the first touch attribution, it could be the first touch, or it could be the last touch. Now, first touch gives 100% credit to the very first interaction the customer had with the campaigns, right, or the channels. While last point gives 100% credit to the very last interaction before purchase. And if we go back to our little diagram here, if we check it out, we can see that this Facebook ad here is our first touch point. So if we were to go by the first touch attribution, we would give all the credits. Let's say he bought a cap of $30. We would give all the $30 credits to Facebook, right? So Meta ads. Now, if we were going by the last touch attribution, we would give the $30 credits to the email, right? To the very last point to the very last interaction before conversion. So those are very simple ways of understanding attribution at this level. Now, if we go back to our multi-touch models, we have three major types, right? Linear attribution, time decay attribution, and position-based attribution. Now, linear attribution simply means every single touch point in between, they will distribute credit evenly across all these touch points. So back in our diagram, both from Facebook, Google, and email, they would all receive equal credits for these $30. So these $30 will be divided by three. So 1, 2, 3, and each will get $10, $10, and $10 credits. Now for time decay attribution, it gives credits to interaction closer to the conversion. So in this scenario now, we have this is our email, which is closer to our conversion. So time decay simply means the oldest conversions are going to lose credits relative to the newest ones, right? So Facebook being the oldest will receive lesser credits, and Google being closest to the conversion, next closest to the conversion, would receive more credits than Facebook, but less than email. Why email will definitely receive the most. That's the idea of time decay. Now, position-based attribution kinds of distribute it to touch points across positions, right? So here we have a U-shaped position which gives credit to the first and the last interaction, then distributing the remaining credits among the middle touch points. It simply says this first guy and the last guy, it will give the most contribution to them. So there's a way they split it. It will give to this first one and to the last one, and every other touch point in the middle it will distribute what is left for them. So it's not like some of them are not going to get, but all of them will get, but not equally. So the ones in the center will receive the lowest credits, while the ones at the end, which gives us a U shape, will take the most credit. Now for W-shaped, it simply gives most credit to the first and the last, like the U shape, and then it gives extra credit to the lead capture touch points. Now the lead capture touch points can be in the middle, right, in the middle of all the touch points. The lead capture is simply the one that's converted, that brought in the customer like a Google form or a sign up, right? So any touch points that led to some sort of higher interaction from the customer also takes equal credits with the first touch point and the last touch point, while the remaining credits will be split between the touch points in between. So guys, these five attribution models are the most important attribution models that you kind of have to know, have to internalize. And when you're building out your models in your data warehouse, this is literally what you will be modeling. You're modeling a first touch, a last touch, a linear attribution model, a time decay, or a position-based attribution model. Now, for this tutorial, we'll be modeling the first touch points, last touch points, and linear attribution. If you like, on your own, you could go ahead and practice creating the time decay attribution and the position-based attribution. Remember to download the data in the link in the description so that we can use it in the practical session. So common metrics that are used in attribution, we have conversions. Conversion simply means all the customers, all the buying customers these channels brought in. So if Facebook, Google, Instagram, YouTube brought in a total of 100 customers, and the 100 customers bought an item. Those 100 customers are we refer to as conversions. So we had 100 conversions from these channels. Attributed revenue is revenue credited to a channel or a campaign. So one thing you should know is not all revenue are actually attributed revenue. In some cases where they got organic traffic, then revenue from organic traffic isn't calculated or assigned credited to a channel. So that is revenue not attributed to any particular channel. Now we also have attributed ROAS, which is attributed return on ad spend. Now, if you don't know what ROAS is, ROAS measures how much was generated back for every dollar spent in marketing. Right? It literally measures the return on marketing, and which is what e-commerce use as their major metric for defining returns. So, but in this case, we now have attributed ROAS. Now, attributed ROAS, because there are multiple types of attribution models, they'll also lead to varying ROAS for different channels. Now, a first touch attribution would not give the same revenue to particular channels like last touch attribution, and it should also be different from linear attribution. So that's the purpose for attributed revenue and attributed ROAS, because this these different types of attribution models will give different results depending on which of them the business is using. So that's mostly about it for the theoretical part of attribution. And here we have our table, which will go into BigQuery now and start creating our attribution models. So this is basically the attribution model design. You can expand it over here. You can expand it here so you can see it better. So if you right click, you'll be able to pan across the canvas. So this is basically our model design, right? This is the way the data flows across our model. So it gives you a visual idea of what is going on. And we have all these tables. We have our touch points, which is our sessions, and others table available in those data sets. So we'll go over to BigQuery. We'll start uploading our data into BigQuery and creating our models now. So I'm in BigQuery, and the first thing you want to do is probably create a project. Right? You just want to create a new project for what we are going to be doing, and then give it a name, which will be very simple and straightforward. Now, I won't be creating a new project. I'll be using this one, which already exists here. So inside your project, if you have any challenge finding BigQuery, you can just check by this left tab here, and you'll see BigQuery among the list here. Or you could check here and search for BigQuery, and we select BigQuery from the result. So what we're going to do is we're going to create our attribution models. We're going to create our attribution model in BigQuery, and then we'll start by creating a data set. So I already have this data set inside here, but I'll be creating it again. So you can call it attribution data and select US for your location and create data set. Then refresh here. So inside this data set is where we are going to start uploading our raw data sets. So if you check the link in the description, you'll see the drive for the data sets. You download each of them and then you upload them here. So if you want to upload those data sets, you click on create a table and then you select upload, and then you click here to browse the particular file that you want to upload. So once you locate the file to upload, then you click on it and continue. So this will automatically change to CSV file format inside our project and inside our attribution data set. So we want to name our table. We just name our table the same name with the file to make it easy to identify. So add spend, and then we select auto detect, then create table, and then refresh. So you repeat this for all the data sets that we'll be making use of. So now we have all our data sets inside here, and we can take a look at each of them. So we have orders and sessions. These are our two important data here. And then we have ad spend and campaigns. If you take a look at sessions, sessions have session ID, customer ID, session time, campaign ID, channel, and platform. So sessions data set is for every customer session within an e-commerce platform. So every time a customer visits the website, it's usually recorded as a session. So that's what we have here. We have the time, and then we have the campaign ID from which the customer came into this session. So we have channel and platform. If we go to campaigns, we'll be able to understand the campaign data. So we have campaign ID, you have the campaign name, channel, and platform. If you preview it, campaigns are simply advertisements that were made by an e-commerce store. So the campaign name, you can see the different campaign names, and then the channel is the importance column here. So channel and then platform, but mostly channel. So you can see we have organic search, right, which is through Google, and then paid search also, which is through Google. We have Pinterest, TikTok, email, referral, right, and paid social through Facebook. For our ad spend, for our ad spend, this is the amount that was spent for ads, right, launching ads for e-commerce for their advertisements, right. So you would see how much was spent. So you would see how much was spent on the particular dates or months. The cost here is $675. You see the impressions and the clicks, right, and campaign ID. So these are important columns or important values in e-commerce analytics. Right, in the general e-commerce analytics, not just attribution. So if we go back, we now have our main orders table where the orders that were made by customers. So we have order ID, customer ID, the customer that made that order time, and the revenue from that order. And last is customers, which we may not really need for this project. So, so in order to model the data, the attribution model that we want to create, we will take a look. We'll be looking at this diagram here, which you can see in the note. So this is a visual representation of what our model is going to look like. So over here, these two boxes up here represents our table, and this represents our orders table. This represents our sessions table. You can see with some labels to the left hand side here. So in this case, our orders simply represents the grain of our orders is one row per order, right? And the grain of our session is one row per touch point. And the idea is we are going to match these orders to their corresponding touch points. So this line indicates a join, an SQL join. So we join these two tables together to give us our orders touch points. Now it is from this orders touch points, which represents one row per order touch points, right? We match orders to its session touch points. It's from this orders touch points we now derive our attribution models. So this is the first touch attribution we create. There are three different attributions I'll be creating. We'll create the first touch attribution, we'll create the last touch attribution, and then we'll create the linear attribution. So after creating, so this is just how the data is flowing, not necessarily flowing, but how we are creating our models, our tables, and their derived tables. So you can see here that from this first touch, last touch, and linear touch, what is going on here is we are just unioning all these tables together into a single table, right? So that we'll use this single table instead of three different tables. Each attribution will be inside here. And then next, we are joining this single attributed table to our campaign spend. Our campaign spend is from our ad spend, right? We are using, in this case, we are aggregating this ad spend by campaign. So we have ads that are being, multiple ads that are being created, but multiple ads that are being created, but they are created only under a few campaigns, right? So if you go here, you see the few campaigns that are being created. So we have just 9 campaigns, right? But under these 9 campaigns, we've created dozens and dozens of ads. So we are going to aggregate everything inside this campaign spend table, and then we'll join it with this attributed attribution table. The purpose of joining the spend, which is the cost, and the attribution table is you get your revenue from this table, and then you get your costs from this table, which would help in creating an actual performance table, right? A table where they see their ROAS, cost, customer acquisition cost, although that is not amount here. So we'll just be stopping at total cost and then ROAS, right? Return on ad spend, to keep it simple. Our major goal here actually stops at this attribution table, right? So this is the attribution table we are actually building. Remember, we are not just building attribution tables for the sake of building attribution tables. The tables are meant to feed into something, which is our performance table, which is the e-commerce performance table. This is the value that they derive from everything that you will do so far up to this point, right? So this is your final performance table. So let's head back over to BigQuery where we start creating our tables. The first thing you want to do is you just want to have a look at your data, which we've already done briefly, but we can have a good idea of, we can have a better idea of what the data is about, and then try to understand it. So our first thing here is our orders table, right? In our orders table, we have each row represents an order that was made. That is what they call a grain, a table grain, right? So what does each row represent? So each row represents an order that was made by a customer. So we have about 107 orders down here. And then if we can now go to our next table, which is our sessions table. Like I said earlier, our sessions table represents a session, right? It's a customer session in the e-commerce website. So we have about 1,200 sessions, right? Because customers can visit a website multiple times but end up not buying anything a large number of times, right? So the sessions are usually more than any other table. And then we'll start with these two tables first off, which is sessions and orders, and then we'll create a table that joins these two to showcase this particular orders touch points table. If you check the notes, you can see I already have an outline SQL query for our orders touch points, right? So this simply creates a table and then names it int orders touch points, right? Int being intermediate, a common naming convention if you're used to DBT. So we are selecting from orders and then we are selecting from sessions, right? And we are joining orders and sessions on their customer ID and their session and their time, right? Because if you join on customer ID alone, you will have an explosion of data. The table will explode and fan out, right? But joining both on customer ID and on time ensures that okay, we are we are joining based on two unique criteria, right? Because time is also relevant in sessions, right? But don't get too worked up with trying to cram the SQL query. For now, just understand the entire idea behind the purpose of this query. So joining two tables together, which is the orders and the session for the purpose of creating the orders touch points model or table. The other touch points table is one row per orders touch points. So you select this query and then you go over to BigQuery. Then you go to queries. Okay, no need of going to queries. You can just click on this plus button here and paste in your query. Right. So if you paste in your query, you can even select this here and then run it. So if you run that, you will see the results of just this particular set of query. Right. And if you look at the results, what it gives us here is it gives us the orders, it gives us the order, and then it gives us the particular session that order was made with, right? So you can see we have orders and we have multiple order IDs, which is not supposed to be the case, right? Order ID is a unique one. But in this case, we are getting multiple orders because it represents a customer journey, right? So you can see we have a single customer here, which is customer ID 4, and it indicates what this tells us, that it shows us the his journey, right, which he went through from the start of interacting with that particular campaign or with that particular channel, right? And then it shows us he went through organic search, paid social, Pinterest, and direct, right, before he eventually bought the item. So if you see here, we have the revenue. All this is still from this one order, right? Still from this one order. And then you see the order time is all the same because the order is a single order that was made. So this tells us he made the order on the 2025 November 26th, right? On 26th of November 2025. Now, these are the various sessions that he went through multiple times, right? So you can see if we find the closest if we discover the closest date to the 26th of November, then that's probably the session he actually bought that item. So if you check, we have 11:12, and then down here we have 11:25, right? So 25th of 11. Yes, so this is probably the session he then purchased that item, which you can see it shows the channel was from a direct source, right? So this here models our orders to all the sessions that we made before that final order, right? So we can go back and then run this particular table or this particular query. So now it actually creates the table. It's not going to give us a result because it's created the table. And what you want to do is you want to save this query. Just save it. So you can save it as int orders touch point. And that's okay. Okay. So what we just did was we just modeled this particular table here. Let me use this one. So we just model, here's our models, this is touch points, this is the orders, and we just model this particular table here by joining these two tables together. Now, the next thing we want to do is from that others touch points, right? The intermediate others touch points, we now want to derive our first touch attribution, last touch attribution, and linear attribution, and which is also straightforward. It's just when you're actually defining your logic for your attribution and models, that's when you have to think a bit deeper, right? Understand the logic behind this attribution. But for now, we'll just go ahead and use the provided SQL query. So here you can see our first touch query, our last touch query, and our linear query. Right. So what's going on here is we are selecting from this intermediate others touch point, right? And then we are qualifying it by the very, so here we can see others item, order by session time. So the session time that is here, we are ordering it by the very first, this ascending means from the very first session. So that means the earliest session, right? The very first one. So we'll copy this code, copy the query, and go into, I want to make sure this is saved. So we're going to BigQuery, create a new query, and then paste it inside. So if you run the selected section, you will see the results of our query. So you can see now we have attribution for our exact 107 orders, right? Now remember, this data is an artificial data, so it's not exactly real life data. It simulates real life scenario to its best of ability. So here we have our orders 1, 2, 3, 4 down to the very last. We have the customer that made that order, the campaign it came from, the channel, and through first touch attribution, it was directed to this. It was attributed to the direct channel, right? And we can see the revenue inside here. So we can go back and run the query and save it also. So we can save this as first touch attribution. Great. So okay, we're supposed to run our entire table. Let's create the table. And then it has created our table for us. So one thing I would like to, which I just realized now, is creating our table in marketing attribution, right? Which is not supposed to be. So if you go to my data sets, you can see this is the old one, and this is the new one which I just created. So I'm probably recreating the data inside it. So we are going to correct we're going to correct that particular data. So come here and change that to attribution data. So we change it to attribution data. I'll go to the first one also, change it to attribution data. Attribution data. So you want to create this, since this was the first query, so you want to run this here. And you want to go, so save it. And then go into your first touch, run this also, and save it. So if that is done, you can go and check your attribution data and refresh it, and you should see your two new tables, right? Intermediate others touch points and first touch attribution. So because this is a tutorial, right, we are just joining everything together, but in a more practical sense, all these tables, these are your raw tables, right? They wouldn't be inside the same data set, but we can let it slide for now. So we want to continue creating our remaining models. Our next model is our last touch. So come and copy is the same logic, but ordering by descending, right? So the very last entry in that table. in that session. So paste it here and make sure to correct this attribution data. I'll definitely even correct it. I'll correct the entire query in the notes before I even send it live. So we can run this. You can view it and run it. It will literally give you the same results. Then save our query. So it as last touch attribution. And then finally our linear attribution. So what linear attribution does is it distributes the entire revenue. So this revenue is distributed by it distributes it equally across all these sessions, right? So that's the logic here. We paste it inside here and then run it also. Then save it. So save query, cancel the query. So run it. Run. That's good. Okay, and save. Linear attribution and save. So you have all your queries. If you want to go and check your data set, you can go to data sets, attribution data, and then refresh it. So you can see them inside there. Last touch, first touch, intermediate. If you're not checking your queries, just look at queries here and you'll see all your queries that you've created. So mine, I have both the new one I created and the old one that I created. So that's not an issue. So we can continue. Our next model is the combination of all three models, right? All these three. So we'll combine it inside here to make it easier to use later. So back in here, you can copy. This is the attributed revenue, right? The single table attributed revenue, and you can see we are doing a union on all our attributions. Linear attribution with first touch and with last touch. And not just that, we are also aggregating. We're also returning some aggregates, right? So here we are counting all the order ID and we are recording it as conversions because all the conversions, all these orders that were made are recorded are known as conversions, right? And then we are summing the attributed revenue as attributed revenue, and then we are counting the order IDs again as attributed orders, right? So it's literally like the same logic here and here. The same thing with first touch and then last touch. So if you copy this, go into BigQuery and paste it inside and run, then we can save this as single attribution table and save. So I keep forgetting to change this to attribution data, and I can run that. Let me check. I think yep, attribution data, and then run run that. So now I can save our query properly, and I can save this query properly. Alright. So we just literally created all these our other touch points. We created the attributions and then the single table attribution. Then the next we are going to create this table campaign spend, which is different from ad spend, right? Ad spend, like I said earlier, is all the ads individually, while campaign spend is all the ads aggregated to campaign level. So back in our Notion, you can see our campaign spend query. We copy it. Here you can see we are grouping by campaign ID while we are summarizing the remaining metrics, right? The remaining columns, we're summarizing it right here. So back in BigQuery, open up a new query, place it inside, change this, and then run our query. Okay, now we can save it and call it campaign. Right, so finally we are at our performance table, right, the very final table. This is going to give us our attribution model, campaign ID, the channel, the conversions from that channel, attributed revenue, attributed orders, the cost, which is the total cost, and then the ROAS. So ROAS, like I said, is attributed revenue over cost. And then you can see the clicks and the impressions, right? So everything inside this particular table. And we are joining campaign spend with attributed revenue. Copy it, go into BigQuery, create our new query, paste it inside, and adjust this. And then run it. And you can save our query as performance table. So save. Okay, so let's take a look at our data. So here are all our created tables: attributed revenue, campaign performance by table, campaign spend, first touch, last touch, linear attribution, and others touch points. So let's take a look at linear attribution and see how our data came out. Let's see, we have others, we have campaign, and then we have revenue. So what are we getting attribution for? Okay, so we can see down here that we have our touch points count, right? So it should tell us how many touch points this particular order went through, right? And for these early ones up here, you can see it's just one touch point, which is why all the revenue is the same with the attributed revenue. So if we go down, we can see this, it has two touch points. So we have order ID 1 and order ID 1. So the same customer campaign, and then we have the revenue. So revenue is 153, but the attributed revenue was 76, and the second attributed revenue was 76. So let's take a look at something more than two, also here. So you can see three down here. Okay, so in this one, you can see order ID 888. We have attribution to paid search and direct. The attribution, the revenue was 133. So the attribution to this particular channel is 44.4, and the same with the other three. So it just divided 133.43 into three places and split it across these various channels. So we can go back to our tables and let's just go into our final campaign performance table. So if we preview this, you can see here that we have our attribution model. So first touch, linear, first touch, everything, and then the campaign IDs, right? The conversions for that particular campaign and the channel, the total attributed revenue for that channel, attributed orders, the costs, the ROAS, the clicks, and the impressions, right? So this is the very table that the data analyst and the e-commerce business owner would be looking at, not your first touch attribution table, not your orders to touch point table, right? So this is where their value is. So from here, they can actually export this data or open it in Google Sheets or Data Studio and then create visualizations and perform their own level of analysis and interpret the data on their end. So, and with that, we've created an actual attribution model in BigQuery. This alone is a very valuable result for a lot of e-commerce stores and even digital agencies, like digital marketing agencies, right? This kind of modeling can be replicated in any other database, be it Postgres or Snowflake or who knows, even Excel sheets, right? So this can be done there, but this is the value that they want to match their revenue to their channels and then create a performance table for them. We will definitely be building a dashboard in Data Studio to see how they would use this at their end, and that will be in another video. So guys, if you watch this video to the end, you're the real MVP, right? And you really did a good one. So you can package this project. It's, as long as I'm concerned, it's a project because you learned more than just building out the practical stuff, right? You actually learned the theoretical part and then implemented it. So you can package these projects in anyhow you want. Maybe in your GitHub, you document it there and then share it on LinkedIn, on Twitter, wherever you feel like sharing it. Thank you very much for watching to the end. I'll see you in the next video.